morning. Good morning, and welcome to your Daily Game Face. It's Dr. Kim Lannon here with Lou Blasi coming from the Methuen studio while I'm in the White Mountains freezing my chickas off.
That's right. Well, it's cold down here too. So,
well, did it snow there?
I want to go. No, it hasn't yet.
Oh, well, it did all day here yesterday, but nothing like just little flurries.
I want to go back.
By the way, I can still hear my music in the background. Did you know that?
Yes, I know. I'm just taking it out slowly. I just don't want to abruptly yank it from people.
Listen, don't yell at me.
It's called production value.
Well, good morning, everybody. And it's the day before unzip your pants and lay on the couch day.
Okay, it's not the way I'd put it, but all right. Yeah.
If you've been listening to the past two podcasts, you won't do that because you'll have all the excellent techniques to make your attitude of gratitude day a mindful eating day and a happy day where you don't want to overeat and kill your relatives.
Yeah, no, I got problems with myself. I got high blood pressure.
Oh, no, now our web connection all of a sudden just cut out. So everyone will have to be patient so that I have to say what to Lou 500 times.
That's all right.
What'd you say, Lou?
I said, I've got high blood pressure problems, so I gotta watch what I eat. Be careful. So.
Yes. Well, that's a good thing too, right?
Yeah.
So topic of today. Oh, wait, before we go into topic of today, Lou, how the snowy owls on the pike.
I haven't seen one yet. You've seen one.
The snowy owls.
Yeah. Yeah, you've seen one. I haven't seen one yet. I don't know what's going on.
They're all over the place. They're all flocking in back to your spot. That means everyone's going to be inundating your home looking for them all over the beach.
That's okay. No problem.
I know. You'll have to move. You want to move to where I am.
I do.
I know. Lou took a vacation this week, a little mini vacation, and I won't disclose where I am because then,
Yeah.
But anyway.
I stayed there last week and I wanted to sign a lease.
I know. So he wanted to move in. So now he sees that I have like a loft. And he wants the loft.
Yeah.
So, well.
On the breakfast place that I want to work at too, I'll just semi-retire and go,
We could do the podcast right from here, all of them.
Yeah. Now we're talking. Yeah.
So anyway, so we have to continue the 3-part series, and then we're going to break it up and go into the next part of the series. But the 3-part series ending today, but starting into the Christmas holiday Hanukkah season is today we're talking about mindful Thanksgivings and gratitude on Thanksgiving and how to have traditions going into the holiday season so that you're happier and not unhappy. Mm-hmm. Because as you know, we have been talking about how sad a time it is for some people and how stressful time it is, and also what happens to people because they overindulge because of those things and stuff themselves in different ways to make themselves feel better, and in fact it makes them feel worse.
Yep. These rituals are the things that can depress people during these times, and I guess that means it's time to set new rituals that won't drain you emotionally like that.
Right. So putting you on the spot, Lou, what would be a good ritual that you could imagine wouldn't drain you?
Me?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, there's 3 football games on tomorrow.
Okay. Well, that's draining for you.
Yeah. No, it's not draining. I love football.
It doesn't stress you out?
Football? No.
You're not a yeller at the TV?
No, not a bad yeller. Well, no, I talk to it. I'm not a yeller. As you know, I don't like to yell, so I talk.
I know you keep it here contained so that your blood pressure really gets higher.
That's right. That's right.
Exactly. Well, so that was.
I don't know. I have there are certain people in your circles now have certain favorite dishes. Maybe you go do a dish. I like to cook, so I might do a little side dish or something like that.
Are you doing something in honor of us doing clean dishes?
Oh, it'll be relatively clean, yeah.
Relatively.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I made mashed potatoes last night. They're not clean.
No.
Nope. They have Boursin cheese in them. They have cream cheese, sour cream, butter, and milk.
Did you hear Bill this week on EEI?
I did.
Oh, it was right. It's right. There's going to be T-shirts. Starch me up.
You what?
Did you hear that part of it? Starch me up?
Yes, I did. I did hear that.
There's going to be T-shirts. I want to make them too.
I know. Will you get me one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so first off, right?
And by the way, Tom said too on Thanksgiving that's the time he gives up his diet. So a lot of people treat this, and I know we talked about it last week. A lot of people treat this as what the hell? All the rules are off.
I know, right? Yeah. Well, I've had that conversation with several people, including one yesterday, about how just because it's Thanksgiving, you just go, oh, well, we can just eat whatever we want. And then what happens is it makes you feel like garbage.
Yeah.
And so it's not really a good strategy, as you know, that we should do. You should treat it as a normal day and really focus on what the day is. It's not an eating food frenzy day. It's actually supposed to be about being thankful and having gratitude. And so really the mindful piece would be to start turning it in a different direction, that you're really supposed to be aware of the day and the different aspects of it. And it's not really technically supposed to be about like free-for-all eating, which in the United States, considering it's our holiday, that's what it's turned into. And so, but the problem is it's contributing to the epidemic of eating disordered behavior, both on the overeating and the undereating. So if you have a poor relationship with food anyway, which many people do, most people do, then you bring it to the table, literally, and then you've got all this stuff going on that makes it very difficult to emotionally function. So crash course in neurology today, the neuropsychology of that.
And I was laughing about that discussion we had last week, because I don't know if you saw it, and I don't get the Globe, but I get emails from the Globe and the headlines. And there's a big article in the Globe yesterday about whether you should have turkey or not at Thanksgiving because of the political implications of it. And it's like, oh my God, it's like Thanksgiving. This is why you should stay away from social media, like you stay away from the political discussions at the table, right?
Right. So
even the Globe's hitting us up. All of a sudden we're bad for having turkey, apparently.
Well, yesterday was so talking about turkey in that way, before I get into the neurology of it, the turkey aspect of, what I said on the November 10th show is how turkey is a protein that's really good for you if you're eating it, but it's also got all the tryptophan and other things in it that can make you not feel great at all. So although it's good for you on one aspect, it also contributes to the other issues that don't make you feel good. Yeah. And so if people are eating fish, and I know fish, salmon, see, I said salmon, or anything other than that, except for ham, you're better off doing that. But again, tradition is that you eat a turkey. So, and of course there will be political implications this year because everything's politicized, and that's not going to be good for mental health at the dining room table. So what should you talk about? Well, nothing. Everyone should just do their eating and go home.
You talk about the Patriots, everything's good. Have some fun. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. So the neurology of people asking me this past week, a couple of questions that came from last week's show of like, how do you stop yourself from overeating? And so I had sort of given a little pregame list. So the neurology of it is that there's this little center of your brain, right? Bear with me here. There's a center of your brain. You've heard me talk about it before, that has 3 emotional actual structures that make us feel good, not feel good. It regulates us eating, drinking, sleep, happiness, all the things that make us emotional, anger, agitation, and so on. And so the main structure that makes us want to eat or not is called the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is a little teeny thing in the back of your brain that's like right there in your emotional register. And what it does is it's like a light switch. You're normally able to, it comes on when you're hungry and it turns off when you're full. Mm-hmm. The problem is when people have a poor relationship with food, when they're overeaters, they train that to stay on. So their brain always thinks it's hungry. So it's always looking for self-soothing foods. And why people say, why do people go to comfort food? Because they want to keep that on because it feels good. And then when it starts to actually go off, a person will keep training it to stay on by eating, more junk, more bread, more pizza, more rolls, more cereal, whatever has that high carb content that doesn't break down because it keeps that structure on. Mm-hmm. So when it goes to turn off, a person starts feeling like either the sugar crash or something physiological, but also the emotional draw. So if a person's on the other end of that spectrum and they're anorexic or they're a restrictor and they're binger, purger, they keep the hypothalamus turned off all of the time. They train it to stay off by either restricting themselves or by binging, purging, which keeps it from going, right? So it will make it stay off so that the person never feels like they're hungry because it actually keeps the switch off. And so to turn it back on, like if someone has to go to treatment for it, recovery on either side, it's retraining that little teeny emotional center in the brain that's really caught up in the other two structures, which is your hippocampus and your amygdala. Your hippocampus is your memory maker. So if you have a death in the family, or you've had a trauma happen to you, or you've had something really emotional, the hippocampus is your memory maker. And if it's sad and it in the moment while you're eating and overeating or restricting, they connect and talk to each other, which will fire up the fight or flight, which is the amygdala, which makes you either run towards the food or run away from it, or run towards relationship or run away from it. So when you have all three of them working together, which they do all the time, if you are an overeater with lots of carb load and lots of self-soothers, you're keeping it on, which makes your emotional memory center sadder, and then it makes your amygdala run. So if you're the opposite, right? So the balance of that in between is where you really want to go. So literally, you don't want to keep feeding the fire on all three of those fronts, because it makes you emotionally just not happy, which is why people struggle from Thanksgiving to New Year's, because people just feed. And they're normally probably like that anyway, or they're normally restrictors, but it makes you emotionally unstable. So very important to realize that it's not just about food, it's about actually how it changes your brain and can contribute to a lot of distress in your body and your mind, and how you are in terms of even relating with people. So there's my crash.
How do we game that as opposed to abuse it? Because either extreme is abusing it. How do we game it so it works to our advantage?
So obviously, if you're going to start pre-gaming and making it like a change today, well, it's not going to be an overnight change. But the change is to really make sure that you're mindful and aware that you start your day off with, people skip meals all the time, and it's and you should, be, based on your weight and how much you're supposed to be eating, and, checking with your doctor, you're supposed to be having X amount of food each meal, with nothing really in between, unless you're losing weight or gaining weight for a variety of medical reasons. So when you start off your day, it should be some movement with, plenty of water and your first meal, so that your body charges up. People often skip meals, and I was notorious, this, I told you this for years. I skipped all the way through to the afternoon, mostly because I didn't have time. And I had to go back and retrain my brain to force it, because I was able to go almost the entire day without eating. And then you know what happens? 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night comes, and then you eat like 2,000 or 3,000 calories, and then you go to bed on it.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And it's because you're starving by that point, but you've avoided the hypothalamus telling you you're hungry, because you've trained it to stay off. So starting the day off with an awesome, some movement in the morning, even 5-10 minutes, water, coffee, if you have coffee, and then something that's like healthy, something plant-based or animal-based protein to get the mind going, so that your emotional regulator is going and that your body's going, so that you're not then hungry 2 or 3 hours later. You're going to be able to make it to like lunchtime and have like your salad or your chicken or vegetables. I mean, we really should be predominantly plant-based, all, as much produce as you can have on all plates, because it keeps it fueled. So if you start off today and you haven't done this before, I would just add water in as your staple in between everything. So adding in more water than nothing else, so that you're not just sitting dehydrated, first of all. And that people do that too. They'll have coffee, no water.
Yeah.
And then it goes to the emotional center of the brain that I just talked about, and it dysregulates you. It makes you agitated in the amygdala. So really, that would be a great first put into your plan ritual, is just have water and a little movement in the morning. Now, if you're further along, like a lot of people that I know, because I've been working with them.
Well, hang on. Let me back up on something that you said, because a few years ago I lost a significant amount of weight and was very into my diet and things like that. And I turned into a grazer, and I've kept that habit. I do like to graze. I don't load up on meals, and I throw a couple hundred calories at myself every couple of hours, just to keep it going. So it doesn't sound like that's a good idea.
So grazing for some people depends on what you're grazing on and how much and how often, right? So again, not calorie counting, but calorie counting, right? Yeah. If your body is going to only be able, you're only, 2,000 calories is the upper limit for someone to just maintain, and that's pretty high, right? So if you're grazing all day and you hit 1,800 to 2,000 as a man, your size, and I know your height, whatever, you're within the range. But if you're grazing all day, mindlessly eating versus mindfully eating, because you can be a grazer and mindfully eat, like when you pick up a handful of almonds versus a handful of chocolate M&Ms, right? So it's dependent on what you're grazing on. It's dependent on how much movement you're putting in your day to make yourself feel good. It's all these little things that add up over time to see whether or not that's happening. You know,
it's so hard for me. The hard part is at night, because you have that meal at 6 or 7, and there's 5 hours, for me, maybe more before I go to bed. And it's like, that's a tough time, because you're just trying I'm just trying to find ways not to be hungry that whole time, or not to be snacking that whole time.
Right. So the snacking piece is really, really what gets people in trouble, because they'll have a meal, right? And then they'll have snacks in between because they think that they're hungry. But remember, they're bored. So when someone's just eaten a meal and then they go, well, I'm still hungry. Yeah. It's boredom or something else emotional is going on. So it's when you have those little snacky things in between, but you've already eaten a full meal, your brain has said to you, it's sending a signal that's really not accurate, and you're not being mindful and being aware of what it is. You're just going with it, assuming that, oh, it must mean that I'm hungry. So you have to check in with yourself to find out, am I really hungry? There's the HALT, right? Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Yep. Am I really hungry? Usually no. It's almost 100% of the time no. It's usually that you're right, angry. Now, angry isn't angry is agitated, frustrated, stressed about something, right? It's on that continuum that makes that amygdala go, right? Lonely, very much of the time people eat out of loneliness and boredom. And then tired is obviously just tired, fatigued. It could be all those things. And a lot of snacking happens under the ALT of that. So it's HALT. If you are A, L, or T, you're not hungry, right? So don't eat. But people don't mindfully check in with that. And then it emotionally just regulates people, makes people feel really sad, down, angry, agitated. And then it makes people either restrict more or eat more.
Yeah. And unfortunately, when you start restricting, that works against you.
Yes. Yeah. And people don't realize it. And yes, in the short term, it makes people lose weight usually, but it really messes up the body. And then the body gets out of control and can't stop losing weight.
Well, first of all, mentally restricting yourself is not sustainable, because you're going to give into it eventually.
Exactly.
Secondly, it slows your metabolism down. Even when you're not hungry, does it do that? Because a lot of times when you're quote unquote dieting, you have to be careful of not putting your metabolism into camel mode and just, slowing the burn down and slowing down, so because it doesn't know when the next meal is going to be.
Well, and that's the struggle with like mental health and dieting, right? Dieting is got such a misnomer. And this is why, having a good nutritionist in your life, or having a good dietitian, or someone that you follow, even if you do it online, and you're not doing anything psychological necessarily, is really making sure that the dieting, dieting is dangerous, right? So if you're using a diet, oftentimes that's why it's it's yo-yo dieting, because everyone tries 50 different ones. And what it's done is, if you tried Atkins and Weight Watchers and, keto and paleo and Mediterranean, and you're doing all of them, and you do a week and then another week, and your body is going, what is going on? So it changes your metabolism to really not know what to do, instead of being consistent. So finding a consistent pattern, instead of it being a diet, just making it a consistent lifestyle, so that it's not just, as I say, any day that ends in Y should not be a day that you just go, oh, it's a cheat day. There are no cheat days. It's everything you choose is mindfully chosen, so that you know exactly why you're eating it, when you're eating it, and how it's going to make you feel.
But you can't be austere, because denial doesn't last.
Right.
Ultimate denial doesn't last long term. And this is kind of like when we talk about addiction, it's a dual diagnosis, right? If you have problems with food, right, unless you deal with the baseline issue of it, you're not going to be successful in the long run.
Right. And so, and that's where a lot of addiction work has gone towards in the last decade and a half, around like recovery centers for like eating disorders, is because it is addiction. It's the same place in the brain. It has the same kind of activation quality to it. And it really gets people into that cycle of, denial. And there's the externalizing of, it's not me, it's this external thing. It's, the stress, it's somebody else, it's genetics, it's whatever it is. Or pandemic is the big one right now. Oh, it's the pandemic. No, the pandemic didn't make you eat. You chose to eat, right? So it's that mindset that people get into, which is going back to the top of the show, talking about how do you be or activate mindfulness, and being real with yourself and being upfront to say, okay, I need to make sure that I keep my metabolism in check. I make sure that, I want to do this and eat these things and make sure that my body's fueled for movement, not for just eating to eat or restricting to restrict. Going back to that, restrictors and binge purgers think that they're going to lose weight, and right. Binge purging actually can make you gain weight. And people, I see young girls in this all the time, is that they will do the binge purge and they will initially lose weight. But people don't understand that when you eat a big binge meal, say 2,000 calories at a meal, which is a lot of times what my bingers do, right? Yep. They'll binge 2,000 calories, then they'll purge it all back up. They think that they've purged it up so there's no calories, but in fact, the body needs something, so it will retain some of that and over time accumulate it. And that's why you see people that are in that pattern gain weight. Yep. And then they start becoming restrictors. So because then they realize that the binge purging really isn't working. So they'll stay binge purging, but they won't eat as much. And then they'll become restrictors. So now you see, that's when if you've ever been to an eating disorder clinic, which you probably haven't, but I have, and you see people that have dropped to the point where, they're 85 to 90 pounds. And they emotionally can't, a lot of psychological work happens on these units because it's addiction recovery from the brain having this dopamine rush, essentially, for lack of a better way of explaining it, of happiness that they feel so thin and feel so good, but in fact, the body's closing down on them. Just like on the opposite side, if you're overeating, and you're becoming heavier and obese, then the body's shutting down again, because you may feel good because you feel happy and satisfied in those moments. It's the same thing on either end of the spectrum. And the metabolism, when people's metabolism changes, it makes the emotional center go crazy. And it makes people, you don't see people on either end of those spectrums that have poor relationships with food, have good mental health per se. Like many people tell you that they're really happy or they're satisfied, but in fact, they're really struggling with what you just said, which was the underlying symptom issue. Eating, drinking, drugging, gambling, sex, shopping, whatever it is, are the symptom of the problem. And the problem is the emotional thing that's driving them to do it in the first place, right? So whatever's lacking, whatever's feeling, that is what's at the root of it. And many people, like you just said, don't want to deal with that. So it's very hard. And at a time like a holiday, or the string of holidays, this is why it's so heavy loaded in like suicidal ideation in people, and people who are already compromised mental health wise really end up struggling during this time for a lot of this mindlessness and not being really activated in mindfulness, because then they have to actually look at some of that stuff. And it's really hard for people, which I get, I do this for a living. So that's why I'm like focused on like, let's make it gratitude and what are you thankful for, and not really focus on, it's great. Focus on the football game, focus on going out for a walk with, playing a game, doing puzzles together. It's something that's active with your mind that you're engaging. And it's not just about sitting around. We talked about this, I think last week, the culture of eating, everybody gets together just to culturally eat. And then, you have relationship flare-ups, you have political flare-ups, which is clearly going to be this year, right? Everyone's back together for the most part. And then it makes it really hard for people.
All right, full-blown disorders aside, or you're sitting there, just practical application here. I'm sitting here tonight at 9 o'clock, and I've had dinner, or it's 9:30, and I just feel like I want something to eat. How do I deal with that?
So a couple of things. I'm always of the mind to say, check in with yourself. Are you angry, lonely, tired? ALT. Really ask yourself, are you those things? If you are any of those things on that continuum, you say halt, make a cup of tea, have a glass of water, put some lemon lime in it. If you really then feel like I'm really hungry, it's about just activating a good choice. Have an apple. Apples are good. Apple with a little teeny bit of peanut butter. Have something that's going to be easily water breaking down, right? It's not going to sit on your body all night like having nachos.
Yeah.
It's probably not your,
right.
Like last night when I was making mashed potatoes at 10:30, 11 o'clock, and then I had a scoop of them because I wanted to taste them. Probably not a good idea to go to bed on,
Yeah.
Wouldn't be my normal standard, but nonetheless, right? People ask me about popcorn at night. Popcorn's fine as long as it's not like the entire bag, or it's coated in cheese and butter. That's, Just because it's popcorn doesn't mean then you should coat it in like chili and cheese.
Right.
So just like some of those basic things. But start first with like, are you angry, lonely, tired? ALT. Go with the halt first and then figure it out, because then you're not just opening up the refrigerator. If you're going and looking in the refrigerator and you don't know exactly what you're getting out of it,
Yeah.
You probably shouldn't be opening the refrigerator. Because you're mindlessly looking for something, which means you're not in an H, you're in ALT.
Well, I've done this so much. I've got my go-tos, so I know exactly what I'm looking for because
because you place them, you have them ready.
Yeah, it's some watermelon, or it's a little, not a trail mix, but some nuts, cashews, and almonds, that type of thing.
But see, those are healthy choices, right?
Yeah.
So you've been doing a lifestyle change for a while and following that pattern. So you're prepared. So you know what to front load your refrigerator with, or when you're looking, you're not looking for the stuff that, people just kind of graze for. You actually have watermelon, or you have, fruit is great.
I can't have things in the house though, because I will give in to temptation. So I know what not to have in my house.
Right. Well, because you become mindfully aware of what you can and can't choose for yourself in a healthy way. So you've decided, it's not that you can't have it. It's just, that if it's in the house, you will make the decision, because you know why you make that decision. Those little structures I just told you guys about, that forces you to go towards those decisions because you're emotional.
Yeah. I don't eat Oreos, for example, not because I don't love them, because I do, but they're not in the house. And then when I'm in the grocery store and I'm in the checkout line and there's the 5 sleeve, I'm not going to buy those. And I just give myself hurdles so that I don't go for it. Make it a little harder. When it's easy, when it's right in front of you, when it's in the cabinet, it's just too easy.
Right. Right. Well, and so not only is it too easy, and I think we don't realize, I mean, I know we have because we talk about it, but I think people don't realize that how many food products that are emotionally driven towards you because they have chemicals in them that make your body want them more. So they actively put, I won't knock any particular company or brand, but there's some active things that we've mentioned in the shows in times gone by, including today, recent, that are loaded with certain chemicals that actually activate the brain to make you want more, which will make you eat more, which will make you then buy them again, which is why the great slogan for the chip company is you just can't eat, bet you just can't eat one. That's because they're great. They're loaded with a chemical that pulls for the brain structure to do that.
Yeah, they're slipping you a little bit of truth there because they're designed so you can't have just one.
Right. And they have that. So yes, it's a whole nother show about like what products have these things that actually are psychologically manufactured to get us to eat them and to keep going at them. So that, everything's a market,
Yes.
From the eating of it to the placement of it in the store to the quick little kiosk at the end, right? The impulse buy, like it's all geared towards your psychology of pulling for your emotional center, bright colored things that really taste good. You've had them before. They reinforce them, being in front of the store, being low to the ground for kids, being up higher and pretty and lots of lights. I mean, it's all connected to your emotional center of your brain that makes you regulate to buy, not buy, eat, not eat. And you're off to the races.
Yep.
So I think tomorrow everyone should just have water.
Well, we talked about it last week, and I'm guessing this is a good thing to recap going into tomorrow's meal is pre-gaming, because I think pre-gaming can limit your urges, can help limit your urges and make the day easier for you.
Yeah, well, so I know a lot of people in my group do their 5Ks up where we are is the Feaster 5. Are you doing the Feaster 5 tomorrow, Lou? Are you getting up in the morning to do your 5K?
I'm not doing the 5K tomorrow. No.
What'd you say?
I'm not doing the 5K tomorrow. No.
Slacker.
I'm not a runner. You're a runner. I'm not a runner.
I know, but you can walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I go.
So what you have
to walk, but I'll walk on the beach.
You can go walk and look for the owl on your beach.
There you go. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So the pre-game strategy would be that I started off with making sure you have movement, right? I wrote this in an article the other day for the Human Baton, actually, that you start off your day with movement, even if it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just so you've got activated before you eat anything else. You get up, you do your ritual of getting up, moving, and then starting off with water and making sure your water is throughout the day, right? Pre-gaming is because people ask that big show last week, right? People asking, what is pre-gaming? It's not eating like a ton of food and drinking and then going and eating. It's about eating right in the morning and eating right normal foods that you would normally eat, not loading up your deck so that by the time you get to dinner at 5 or 4, whatever it is, you're not then eating mass amounts and then stopping and then doing it all over again because the body can't process it. So pre-gaming is movement, water, normal, small, normal meals, breakfast. And then if your lunch is your turkey dinner or whatever you're having, then it's not a loaded up double-sized plate. It's normal. So that the likelihood is, here's the mindset. You're coming back for more anyway. You know you're going to have it later. So hence smaller plate, smaller, because you're going to have another portion of it within. Some people do it right away, but then some people do it 5 hours later with a sandwich. That's fine, but do it within the contingency that you're going to be portion controlling because you won't be overtaxing your brain and your body to feel crappy. And then you'll be more likely to go to it because you get remember we call it the F-its because we don't, F it, I'll just eat it anyway,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
And you just give into it and then you don't feel good. And the problem is it goes all the way through the weekend because you'll start now. And by the time you haven't pre-gamed and you're in that, Fridays, now you're eating it again. You're going to eat it double on Friday. Saturday's going to be it. And then by Sunday, you're going to be like, oh my God. And then people get into the next motive. Well, Sunday starts Hanukkah for some people. Now we're into Hanukkah. And then we're also into now holiday parties and everyone's gone back together. So there's holiday parties, there's cookies, there's pies, there's all the stuff that push the brain to do that. And now you're in the mode of the next month. And that's why people are flocking to the gym on January 1st because they want to start all over again because they just lost it all at the end of the year and they gained 15, 20 pounds.
Oh, I forgot about that. You can't go in a gym in early January. You can't. It's just nuts because of all the resolutions and everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So, and that's why the whole first month of January, the gym is packed and then it drops off February 1st.
We haven't talked about it, and I want to know if it's true, because if it's true, I would imagine to be a major problem on Thanksgiving is that even if you have a healthy response to knowing when you're full and things like that, that there's a delayed reaction to when you're full. The old myth is 20 minutes. It's 20 minutes before you know you're full. You can eat a lot of calories in 20 minutes at the Thanksgiving Day table.
Exactly. So good question too, because people actually can eat faster than 20 minutes, right? And that's part of mindful eating. If you can spread out your meal that you are eating when you first sit down and you take and savor it over 20 to 25 minutes of just eating that one plate, that means talk time, savoring the smell, being able to actually eat, one spoonful at a time, not shoving it in your mouth and like just swallow, eat to taste, not taste, and not just eat to just swallow. But after 20 minutes, your body is basically probably done. But if you're eating it in 7 or 8 minutes, your body, and you go back for seconds and thirds, now you've stuffed literally 3 meals into a 20-minute period, usually, which people can do, maybe give or take a few minutes, but the body hasn't had time to register it. So the body, by the time it does register it, like I started the show, you're unzip your pants day and lay on the couch. Right? Because you need your stretchy pants or whatever you're going to wear because your body has not registered that it's time to shut off. So after the 20 minutes, it does. Now you've eaten, those 5,000 calories that we talked about. Yeah. And then an hour later, you're hungry, but you're really not. It's your brain, that structure in your brain saying, I'm messed up and I don't know what's going on. So what you do is as a mentally, astute person, you say, I must be hungry. I'm going to eat more. But that's not really what you should do because the body is trying to reset itself because it just overshot on the timing. So after 20 minutes is not time to reload. So if you're eating 3 plates of food or 2 plates of food in the 20-minute period, it's too much on the body.
Yeah, and this is one of the pitfalls that people run into with this, because what they'll do oftentimes, especially if they're aware of calories or they're dieting to some degree, is they say, I won't eat in the morning so I can have those calories for the Thanksgiving meal. But that just works against you in the long run. You're going to do more damage.
That's why I said, like, start your day with like a small little meal, like fruit, yogurt, or protein of some sort, making sure you have water, your coffee, make sure you move. And, because by the time people calorie stack, right? I call it calorie stacking. They're stacking the calories to bank them for later. And then that doesn't work. Banking calories does not work. So if you're waiting and like, okay, I won't eat all day and I'm going to eat everything I want because it's Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever it is, what it ends up doing is making you eat more.
Yep.
You're doubling, sometimes tripling the calories that you would normally eat. And then it sets you up for 2 days usually of the same pattern because your brain goes into that pattern. And of course, because we have leftovers, your body shouldn't really go into a mode where if you have potatoes today, you should not have potatoes tomorrow. If you have, you should have different things because your metabolism is still breaking it down, but people don't do that. They eat the same thing. And so the body goes into that stack mode of extra calories and it never gets a chance to stop and breathe. So the worst thing you could do is wait all day to eat because it's going to load you up. For sure.
And it's going to stall your metabolism, right? Because your body's just going to go into storage mode. Right. I don't know when my next meal is coming, so I'm not going to burn what I have here for energy. And if you're dealing with weight loss or if you want to process better, you want to keep your metabolism up.
Right. Right. And so it goes into it. Well, it doesn't convert. It doesn't convert to what it's supposed to convert. It converts to sugar and fat, and then it sits on you because and I know we talked in the extremes of the two ways of people going towards food, but really most people are in those edges when they're having these holidays, and in those edges, you're getting stuck with the metabolism not moving at all because you've overdone it or underdone it. Most people overdo it. And the metabolism or your body goes into fight and flight that it thinks it's starving or it thinks it's going to die. So it by nature will stop itself from doing what it needs to because it doesn't know when the next meal is coming from, or it's already so stuffed that it's overtaxed. What a mess.
I know, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. But I hope, I have, the last two shows had such good response from people saying, oh, I didn't realize what I was doing to myself. And how emotionally, my focus is always on how does it emotionally make you feel? Like, how are you going to feel tomorrow or how are you going to feel later if you do that? And do you really want to do that? It's such a terrible feeling to have that, the after effect, it's kind of like the food coma hangover and people think it's kind of funny and make jokes about it. But unfortunately, it sets you up for a lot of stuff that reinforces your emotional baggage, so to speak. If you're already sad, it just makes you sadder. If you're already depressed or grieving or anxious, all those things make all those problems worse, even if you're not clinically diagnosed with something and you're just kind of bluesy during the holidays, or you have like a really bad feeling of anxiety from time to time. All that, this process that I'm talking about impacts that and makes it worse. So
can you go back and expand a little bit on, because I talked about when you starve the body, it slows down its metabolism, doesn't burn as much. And I was a calorie based, I lost weight based on calorie deficit. So I knew about that. You say it converts food differently when it gets into that mode too?
Well, so when you load up on, say you load up on a ton of carbs and you're not used to having all the carbs. I mean, maybe you're a carb person like many people are, right? And if you have all these carbs tomorrow, for instance, the body will not convert all the food the right way. It will start converting it to what it needs, but also then converting what it can't use over to like sugar and fat, right? So everything's going to convert over to some measure of that, but you don't want it to store and then hold. So when you're overstacking your calories, if we use calories, and you're having too many calories on the carb loaded side without your protein and produce to balance it, to burn it, the body will sit with it and it won't convert correctly to disperse the right nutrients to the brain, to the happy feeling or this the good feelings. It will go towards the sad struggle feelings because it's not metabolizing correctly in the liver and the kidney and the pancreas. So it's either overproducing, cortisol, anxiety, right? It's overproducing stuff in the pancreas, the insulin, your glycemic index runs up and down, if you're hypoglycemic or you're hyperglycemic or you're not, and then you put your body into those temporary modes from these overeating periods, your emotional center just falls apart along with your body, which is why you feel so terrible for multiple days after these holidays.
Talk a little bit about supplements and can they play a role in this? Obviously, it's too late for tomorrow. You have to be
too late for that.
But generally speaking, in terms of your eating struggles, are there supplements that can help you combat these?
So there's no diet pills, right? So there's certainly things. Oh, the sun's coming in. Do you see that? I'm losing my. Ooh, I'm going to push back. There's no supplements per se that will actually make you lose weight. There are things that help your metabolism in general that are just kind of natural things. Obviously, vitamin C, B12. If you use inositol and choline, depending, you have to check with your doctor for that, right? Those are just metabolizers that are natural and normal to your body. If you find a good naturalist in your area, they'll be able to teach you about those things that are not gimmicky and not like, oh, this is going to make you lose weight or this is going to make you maintain. No, this is just like how to keep your body functioning healthy. But in the fact that if you're a person that has not done these, and many people don't, your best bet is to, do some water with lemon, do basic natural things. Vitamin C is fine. Make sure you don't go over the 2,000 for the day because it's water soluble and you'll just end up peeing it out anyway. But nothing that's going to make you just all of a sudden burn calories or anything like that.
Right.
But it's great. Hey, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry making big bank on getting people to believe that that's going to happen. And there's certainly products out there that make your metabolism speed up. But again, it's kind of like disordered eating. What does it do? It messes up your system so that it doesn't do it right. It turns the hypothalamus into a cluster.
Yes. See, that's the part of the game I never really got a grip on when I did it through calorie deficit and just basically, I mean, you pay attention to other stuff like what you're eating in terms of carbs and things like that. But basically, it's a calorie equation. You can only go so far in terms of limiting your calories or burning calories. So you try to start figuring out your metabolism and keeping that up. And that's it's just a tricky game. It's hard to do. It's hard to spike your metabolism.
Yeah. Well, I'm laughing because I can't get out of the sun. Are you watching this?
Yes, but you look okay. Yeah.
Okay. Cause it's coming in on my face now. Yeah. So now, Lou, I'm focused on the sun. Repeat what you just said. The carb. I know you said.
No, that was part of the game of weight loss or weight control that I always struggled with, because you can count calories and you can only limit to a certain extent. You can burn calories. You can only burn to a certain extent unless you're a freak like you.
But I have to work hard at that. You know that.
So once you get to those points where you've kind of maxed that out, you have to start gaming your metabolism. That's a complicated process. It's not easy to do. And it's something I never really get a great grip on.
Well, so yes. So all of that is so important, because I think that speaks to many people who have poor eating food relationship issues, right? So it's hard to get the grasp on it, because by the time you figure out you need to get the grasp on it, it's gone so long in the pattern of habit that your brain it's very wed to the process. So backing it down and retraining the brain neurologically is what has to happen by habit changes and forming different things. And so that starts with, what you've done. Yes, you've counted calories, but you also knew the science behind you have to be in deficit. You have to have more movement and more calories burned than more calories in. If you want to lose weight, it's got to be by 500 a day for the deficit. And if you want to maintain, you have to be right on point with exactly. And if you
know how this works, you do that and it does very well at the beginning, and you start losing at a very good pace, and you get encouraged, and then the pace slows down a little bit because the body gets closer to where it should be based on the formula that you're giving it. And then you get to that last 5 pounds, that last 7 pounds, and that's really hard, partially because, as you mentioned, you've built habits up, you've built routines with the body, and what you've been doing for the last year or the last few months to get that weight down, and the body, you're not going to get that next level unless you change up on it.
So that's what happens if you're in that mode where you've actually gotten to a point where you are in your goal is to lose weight, for instance. Then your body will shift into a plateau state. That means that something in your movement pattern has to change up, and also your eating patterns. That doesn't mean that you should give up. It just means all you have to do is tweak it. So like I've had a client recently that I was helping get ready for the marathon, and they were doing some of this in their training, and they wanted to lose a couple more pounds because it helps you run faster, right? So they lost a whole bunch of weight. Then they got to this point where they plateaued. And what we did was we switched out, instead of calorie per se counts, we just switched out the water-based foods that they were eating and changed them out for something that would be as easy, but the body wasn't used to having. And so they were the same kind of thing, but they were a new, I'm thinking of the right word. They were a new introduction to them for their body to go, oh, this is something interesting. This is something different, along with a change in how they were working out and running. We did some cross training. Now for people that don't do any of this, don't run away and go, oh my God, I don't do any of that. So it literally is just for people that are kind of your everyday run of the mill, no real exercise. Maybe they walk a couple miles a day and don't really do anything else. All you have to do at that point is just shift some of your food items over. Keep very plant-based, nice and clean, lots of water content in the food. Don't sit down and have a steak every night, or if that's what you're used to, you've got to change it up with something. It's just minor little tweaks to get the plateau to move, and more water. People don't drink enough water. So usually this is why a good nutritionist, I think everybody should have a good nutritionist, because I can tell you all of this in terms of how it impacts your mental health and all those things. But if you're really serious about making life changes like that, you should really talk to someone who knows, or a naturopath who can help you, guide you to those changes, because it's so important and it helps you function better. People don't realize how much cognitive, like your academic performance or your business performance or your day-to-day just being able to talk to people relationally changes when you have a good moving body and a good source body. People don't realize that food really changes you, and dehydration changes you as a person, and then your metabolism, and then all the physiological things, and how important that is.
All right, I want to go back to the habit thing in a second, but we got to the water portion of it. What about some of these waters that you are being marketed, high alkaline water or electrolytes, things like that? How important are they? What's legitimate, what isn't?
So a lot of them are really gimmicky, and a lot of them do have chemicals, so you have to be really careful, right? So, the big thing about looking at the waters that are 0 calorie, and I have no shame in saying that I drink those on occasion, and certainly have those artificial sweeteners. It's one of my downfalls. I'm a Diet Coke drinker and an unsweetened iced tea person with some of that stuff in it. Yeah. But I mindfully know that I'm drinking it, knowing that I'd rather do that than have, something else. So they're gimmicky. Some of them are gimmicky. Some of them are really good for you in terms of if you're not a water drinker and you hate water, it's better to drink the water with those things in it than not at all. Because I know people that drink no water. I can't tell you how many people I know that drink almost 0 to no water a week. And they think they're drinking coffee and then soda and then whatever else. It's, so those water replacements are actually better than nothing. But there are good ones out there that don't have all the added stuff. So just checking, on the back that says no added sugars, no aspartame, no saccharin, and they're getting very good, by the way, at marketing different labels with different words now. So if you don't know the word and you look it up, that probably means you shouldn't be drinking it. And if you do know it, like occasionally I know some of the words that I'm like, yeah, I already know what that is. I'm going to still drink it because I like it. And I don't want to drink regular water. So it just depends. There's certain brands out there that are really, really good. I don't want to plug them just because I'm not getting paid. Yep. So, but there are certain ones out there that are really good. And then there are certain ones that, anything that has a high sugar content in it is not going to be good, especially if it's not natural sugar. So if you're drinking like Gatorade, it's standard. Gatorade, if the Gatorade one that you get has the regular natural sugar that says like sugar cane, right? Great. If it says corn syrup, if it says anything that like sugar alcohol, those are all sugars that are added and your body doesn't convert them well. It incorrectly converts them, but they're loaded with other things that after you've done like, a long run or something, those are those kinds of drinks that help people that are actually doing exercise. If you're a non-exerciser and you're drinking those things, they're weight gainers and they just sit on you.
What about alkaline level of water? Is that something worthwhile paying attention to?
I think for some people, get a benefit out of it. Not everybody, it just depends. If you're going to do that, again, go back to your, your baseline, get a good, there's naturopaths that will do the readout for you to find out what your alkaline levels are so that you actually can balance it correctly. Because you have to be careful, because some people will do that and then you can get too much. Or you can throw some of your balance off, and then it creates other issues. So always start off with, if you know a naturopath in your area, like near us, there's a couple of people that I send people to find out, and I get their labs back, and then we find out like what's really good for them. Because a lot of times people just randomly start drinking things with iron fortification, or they'll get something with potassium in it. You have to be really careful of those two in particular, because they can mess with your body and make you really sick, actually. So, just again, being very generic about this, because you really should check with a really good naturopath or someone that you can go to that gets your labs, so that you can know if you want to really work on your body chemistry like that. That would be a good way to do it. There's certainly good products out there for it. I mean, you walk down the aisle and you just pick something up, but you just have to be careful, because if you have certain things, you have certain medical conditions, you have to be careful.
All right, let's go back to habits a little bit, because you've raised the red flag for me in the last couple of shows talking about.
You just wait. We'll go back, because I lost you for a hot second.
Yeah, you've raised the red flag for me in the last couple of episodes, talking about doing foods repeatedly, and I'm that guy. If I find something that seems good for me that I can eat, and I can eat, kind of guilt-free or without repercussions, I'll go in at, like a turkey sandwich. I'll have a turkey sandwich like every day, because it seems good, and it's, I'm conscious of the bread, and I've got the bread that's, relatively healthy for me, and turkey sandwich, it fills me up, and but I'll go that day after day after day. That's a problem, isn't it? I got to change it up a little bit more.
Well, I mean, so here's the thing about that, is that it's the strategy is a good strategy for many people in terms of staying the same, because you know what it does for you, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But it also gets you stuck. It can get you stuck in those little plateaus and ruts. So my suggestion, and I always do it based obviously on my mental health side, is your body won't convert bread 2 days in a row the same way as if it has a break. So that means today have or tomorrow have your turkey sandwich, and then the next day still have turkey, because you need the plant protein. I mean, you need the animal protein or whatever the protein is. That's not a problem. But then change it up and put it on like Ezekiel bread. Change the product of the carb base that you're having. As you know, white bread is a no-no. That should not be in your right. That's, your body doesn't break it down. It's full of chemicals. It's usually really processed wheat. It's totally unhealthy. But go to Ezekiel bread, go to a wrap that's like flaxseed or chia seed or something that's based in a plant base. It's easier for the body to break down, and then change it up. So it's not a matter of not having the turkey sandwich. It's a matter of what are you using around the turkey, right? So it helps you. It's because the turkey's not the issue per se. It's the bread. It's the carb process around it. And carbs are good for you as long as you're using good carbs. If your body doesn't like to have, like if you're a pasta eater, your body does not do pasta breakdown. If you have it for lunch, you have it for dinner, then you have it tomorrow. And how some kids are, kids will take, they're on like macaroni and cheese and chicken nuggets. And the kid's body never has an opportunity for it to change up or get a palate for something else, because it's always in that mode. It's always in push for something comfort instead of, okay, just change it up so it has an opportunity to burn. So I would do like a lettuce wrap around your turkey sandwich if you do, or convert to, have one day of your normal bread that you like, and then go to like a wrap the next day, Ezekiel bread. So you're staying consistent, but you're letting your body have a movement through.
Yeah, I was doing wraps, like flaxseed wraps, like very consistently for years, and then just found a good bread. And with the blood pressure problems, they were talking about getting grain in there and things like that. So started reaching for that a little bit, and I really like it. And it's thin slice, and it's okay. But I'm just, like I said, I get into a habit, and I do it day after day after day. My routines, stay pretty much the same.
Well, so some of the companies have been really savvy, because they know there's a good marketing deal and making good money on people who are trying to be healthier. So they're going to plant-based like that, and also the grain-based. And I've talked about this before, is not going to a grain base that's whole wheat, because that's it. That is a no-no, right? We know why, because whole wheat is the same thing as white wheat. It's just got, molasses and other things in it that make it. It's all sugar. So it's about whole grain and plant-based. So really reading your labels and making sure that that's what you're eating. That's fine as bread, because then it breaks it down faster and easier and converts correctly for your body, as opposed to Wonder bread, right? White bread in general, anything that has that white wheat in it, that it's going to be cracked wheat, and it's going to be processed, and it's going to, your body's not going to register. So remember, always think, eat from the ground, eat from the ground, eat from the ground.
Yeah, it's funny looking back. We look back at our childhood and our eating habits. Were just brutally bad, and it's like you can't blame your parents. People didn't know or weren't paying attention to it. But your food upbringing was not very good, especially in my case, Irish and Italian.
Well, so our generation definitely had that for sure. I think that now, I think in the past 2 generations, in the past 20 years, I think that it's changed, but coming up to us for sure, it was not. It was kind of a free for all.
Lots of pasta, lots of potato.
It was easy. It was cheap. Still is easy and cheap. God love ramen noodles, right?
Yeah, and then
college staple.
Then when I was young, at least, that's when packaged food started to come in and microwaves started to come in, and you started getting all that processed food, and it was just brutal.
Right, and keeping it
around,
good, though. Yeah, and keeping it around the mental health and wellness of a person making those healthy choices now is that once packaged foods came in, right, and this, and you just said they made you feel good, and they'd go back to them. I mean, there's nothing better than a can of SpaghettiOs or Kraft macaroni and cheese, which I also love, which will love me. I love them, even though they're disgusting. I love them, but they don't love me. So it's not about being like, food snobby. It's about knowing what you're eating and making a mindful choice, no matter if it's Thanksgiving or Wednesday,
Yeah, and we've been emphasizing Thanksgiving for a while now, but again, the important part is being aware of this for your day to day. I mean, avoiding a disaster on Thanksgiving is great, but if it's not paired with a day to day awareness and a day to day improvements, lifestyle changes,
right,
you're not going to get very far.
Exactly, and what it does is just makes you feel not good about yourself, and that's obviously that's what I see, and that's what people come to me for around that is that, and being able to not just. If you don't want to deal with the food issue, then start walking, or, like I've said, go up and down the stairs 5 times. It's just about changing little tweaks here and there so that you start something, so you don't feel so bad about the next thing. Right. Yeah. Okay. So I have to get ready to wrap up this show. Two things. When we sign off, don't jump away from me, Lou.
Okay.
But also, because it's Thanksgiving, and we're going to wrap up the 3-part series today. And what are you grateful for? So I'm not going to be with you for dinner tomorrow. So what are you grateful for this year?
What am I grateful for this year?
Oh, I put you on the spot. I love it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess the thing I would go to is I've got a group of people around me. Everybody's relatively healthy and things are good. My kids are doing great. My daughter's getting married, soon. And my son's graduated. That completion of that part of my life is the thing I'm most grateful for. Having transformed my kids into adults and looking forward to that next phase. So yeah, my kids, I guess, is what I'm most grateful for, and my close circle, the people who are closest around me.
Very nice. Very nice. So that will be fabulous tomorrow. So when it comes up at the table, you'll have that.
Yes.
Right. Because that's always the question.
It's going to have to come up at the coffee table in front of the football games because.
and you're going to have your bourbon.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No doubt.
What are we drinking tomorrow?
Actually, I got Bullet on the shelf right now. I know it's not impressive, but it's just good.
Really, that's what you're going to have?
Staple. Maybe I'll get something on the way home. Have something special.
There you go. All right. Well, so
I'll wait till Sunday for the Patriots. Special for the Patriots.
You cut off. Do it one more time.
I said I'll wait till Sunday to get something special for the Patriots. So.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Until Sunday, yeah.
All right. So next week we will be starting into the lovely holiday, crazier season than we are now. And we're going to be talking about lots of different things. We're moving on from the Thanksgiving feast and going into other things like traditions and how to create traditions for yourself, and also how to have like good mental health and wellness coming into the new year, and reminiscing and ruminating and making changes, because that's the time of year that everyone starts saying, I'm going to make New Year's resolutions. And we know what that is. Yeah. So we'll be talking about that as we come into the next 4 or 5 weeks. And for everyone out there that's going to get up tomorrow and go run a 5K like I am, have fun and do it. Even if you walk it, I don't care. Just get out there and move, drink your water pre-game. Don't eat 10,000 calories.
No.
Watch your 20-minute mark, right? Don't stuff everything in and then feel stuffed.
Yep.
And just because I know that my lovely little friend upstairs, Abby, is listening, the turkey will be moist. Right, Lou?
Has that been a problem?
Yeah.
She doesn't like moist. That's right.
I like that word, and I have to throw it in there just for her.
When it comes to Thanksgiving turkey, that's a good word.
I know. So anyway, she's dying up there because I know she wants to scream right now, and she can't because she knows I'll kill her. All right. So everyone have a great week, and go to all your favorite podcast channels if you want to catch up on any of the 3-part series before this one on the 10th and the 17th of November. You can find them on all your favorite spots. And Lou, have a happy Thanksgiving.
Same to you.
Thank you.